Hello class, today what we are going to talk about is direct and indirect variation. Alright, direct variation you should have talked about before, inverse may be completely new. Direct variation is where x and y vary directly. And it will be written in the form y equals a times x, where a is not 0. Because if a is 0, then it doesn't matter what x is, everything is 0. Right? So the way we read this is that y is said to vary directly with x, or x varies directly with y. Okay. Notice on the graph as x goes up, y also increases. X increases, y increases. Also, it is always going to go through the origin. Okay. Inverse variation. Two variables x and y are inverse variation if it was like this. Y equals a divided by x. Again, where a is not 0 because 0 divided by anything is 0, right? So the difference here with direct variation, it's a times x. With inverse variation, it's a divided by x. And in both cases, a is the constant of variation. Right? And here we say that y varies inversely with x. Notice as x increases, y decreases. X increases, y decreases. However, if you look at this, this is not a straight line, is it? This is this nice little curve here, and we're going to talk more about what this curve in later videos. But we have this curve. And the important thing there also to know is that when x increases, y is coming down. Where in direct variation, when x increases, y also increases. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We want to show whether x and y are direct variation, inverse variation, or neither one. And to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to get these all in y equals format. So A, we have it as x times y equals 5. We get y by itself, that gives us y equals 5 divided by x. Well, if you remember, when we had a divided by x, that was inverse variation. B, well, it's already solved for y. Right? And does this look like a times x, or does this look like a divided by x? Well, it's neither one. And so this is neither one. For C, here's the original, get y by itself, so we have to multiply both sides by 2. And so we have y equals 2 times x, 2x. So this is a times x, so this is direct variation. Okay. What I want you to do is that same thing with these three equations. Pause the video, work out whether they are direct, inverse, or neither one, and then come back and check your work. All right, let's see how you did. Number 1, direct variation. Number 2, inverse variation. And number 3 is neither one. And again, you got to get y by itself. So number 1, y is already by itself. So it's a times x, so that's direct variation. For number 2, to get y by itself, you would divide by x. So we have a divided by x. So that's inverse variation. Number 3, to get y by itself, you've got to subtract x from both sides. And so that gives you negative x plus 10, which that's not a times x, that's not a divided by x, so this is neither one. All right? Okay, so let's see what we got next. Again, is this direct variation or inverse variation? Now notice here, it's not giving us the equation, right? It's not asking us for the equation either, so we don't have to find the equation to do this. What we're going to look at is the products and the ratios, x times y and y divided by x. Okay, so we're going to take table A here, and we're going to plug in x times y is 24. 2 times negative 12 is negative 24. Then we plug in x times y again. Negative 24, negative 24, negative 24. 4 times negative 6, 6 times negative 4, 8 times negative 3, all equal negative 24. So that's cool. The products are the same. Now let's take a look here. The ratios. Are the ratios the same? And this is always going to be y divided by x, not x divided by y. That's something totally different. All right. So y divided by x. So negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Then we do it with the next one. Negative 6 divided by 4 is negative 3x. Negative 4 divided by 6 is negative 2/3, and negative 3 divided by 8 is negative 3/8. The ratios are not constant. So what this means, if the products are different, then again we get y by itself, we would have something divided by x, so this is inverse variation. If the ratios had been constant, then we would have direct variation. So if this equals k equals some number a, then we have inverse variation. If the ratios y divided by x equals a constant number there, then we would have direct variation. So let's take a look at b. Look at the products, x times y. So 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 16 is 64. So the products are not constant, so this is not going to be inverse variation. So let's check for direct variation. Dividing, 2 divided by 1 is 2. 4 divided by 2 is also 2, so we're looking good. 8 divided by 3 is 8/3. And then 16 divided by 4 is 4. So again, we have no constant here, so this is not a constant ratio. This is neither direct nor inverse. All right. Always check more than just two numbers, because these two came out good, but the whole thing didn't, right? So always check at least 3 points to see if it's inverse of it or direct. I have very, very rarely seen 3 work and 4 not. Usually 3 is okay. I've never seen it go to 4. So what I want you to do is these two. Tell whether they are direct variation, inverse variation, or neither. Pause the video, work these out, then come back and check your work. Alright. So, y'all are back. Let's see how you did. Number 4 is direct variation. Number 5 is inverse variation. Let's work these out. So what we're going to do, same thing. We set up our ratio, check the ratios, products, and the ratios. So negative 4 times 20, negative 3 times 15, negative 2 times 10, negative 1 times 5, and those all came up with different numbers. So that was no good. Then we check the ratios. Y divided by x, remember, not x divided by y. So 20 divided by negative 4, 15 divided by negative 3, 10 divided by negative 2, 5 divided by negative 1, and you notice those all come up as negative 5, so that works. So we don't have a common product, so it's not inverse. We do have a common ratio, so this is direct variation. All right. Number 5, set up our table, and here we see the products are the same. 1 times 60, 2 times 3, 30, 3 times 20, 4 times 15, all come out with 60, and the ratios don't work out. So here we have a common product, so this is inverse variation. Do not have a common ratio, so it's not direct variation. All right, so that's how that works. All right, here we are told that x and y vary inversely. Y equals 4 when x equals 3. So what we need to do is come up with an equation that will relate x and y, and then find y when x equals negative 2. All right. So first, it's inverse, so we know we're going to start with this. Y equals a over x. What we need to do is figure out what that a is. And the way we're going to do that is plug in the x and y that we already know. So y is 4 when x is 3, so we plug those in 4 and 3. Get a by itself, all we got to do is multiply by 3, right? So that means a equals 12. So our equation is y equals 12 divided by x. All right? And we want to know what this equals when x is negative 2. So just plug in negative 2 for x, and y equals 12 divided by negative 2, so it's negative 6. All right. Now here we have a real-world situation. The time it takes a group of people to build a playground varies inversely with the number of volunteers. And that makes sense, right? The more people that are working, the less time it takes to get the job done, right? So we're told it takes 10 volunteers 8 hours to build the playground. We want to come up with a table showing how long it would take for 15 people to get it done, 20 people, 25 people, and 30 people to get the job done. And it also asks what happens to the time as we have more people working. And that should be obvious. The more people work, the less time it takes to get it done. So, first, understand the problem. we're given a description of two quantities that vary inversely and one pair of data tables. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before, right? That's what we're going to do. We're going to use this 10 volunteers and the 8 hours the same as we did with those two, that point we used before. All right, so it is inverse, so time equals A divided by the number of people. Plug in the ones we know. 8 hours equals A divided by 10 people. Solve for A, we know this is it's an 80-hour job. So then when we make our table, here's our equation. T equals 80 divided by N. All we got to do is plug in for N. N is 15, 20, 25, or 30. So 80 divided by 15, 80 divided by 20, 80 divided by 25, 80 divided by 30. And that's all there is to it. Not too bad. So as we do this, the more people that show up, the less time it takes to build a playground. And that makes sense. Okay, so what I want you to do is pause the video, work these 4 problems out, then come back and check your work. Alright, you're back. Let's see how you did. Number 6, you have an equation of y equals 20 over x, and so when x equals 2, you have y equal to 10. For number 7, y equals negative 6 divided by x, so when x equals 2, y is negative 3. And on number 10, you have, number 8, you have y equals 8 over x, and so when x equals 2, y equals 4. And on number 9, if we have 10 people taking 12 hours to build the playground, it's going to take 15 people 8 hours. All right, hopefully you got those all right. If not, let's take a look. So number 6, it's inverse variation. So y equals a over x. So we know that y is 5 when x is 4. Multiplied by 4, a equals 20. There's our equation. We want to know what y is when x is 2. So we plug in 2 for x, and 20 divided by 2 is 10. Number 7, there's our inverse variation formula. We know, oops, I typed those in backwards, so that's no good. Those are backwards. That should be negative 1 equals 6. Still, when you divide by negative, multiply by 6, you still get the same thing. So, oops. So we have negative 6 equals x. So we plug in 2 for x. Sorry, y equals negative 6 divided by x. So y equals negative 6 divided by 2. So y equals negative 3. Number 8. There we go. Type that one in. Right. So 16 equals a divided by 1/2. So we're going to multiply by 1/2. Well, 16 times 1/2. Half of 16 is 8. So equation y equals 8 over x. Plug in the 2, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. Number 9, with the playground, it's still inverse variation because more people means less time, right? So as x goes up, time's going down. So we plug in 12 hours for 10 people. Multiply by 10, it's going to take 120 hours total to get it done. So there's our equation. Plug in for 15 volunteers and 120 hours divided by 15 people is an 8-hour job. Alright, that is direct and inverse variation. Not too bad. Remember that direct variation is y equals a times x, and as x goes up, y also goes up. When x goes down, y also will go down. Inverse variation is y equals a divided by x, and as x increases, y will decrease. And in both cases, a is referred to as the constant of variation. I hope that helps, and I'll see you next time.